I noticed on the internet this morning that there's still entries available for this year's Marmotte, and that got me thinking, should I do it again? That thought lasted about 30 seconds and then I thought, no, I've done it 3 times already. But what would be my top tips to somebody doing the Marmotte? My name's Mike, welcome to Tips for a Successful Marmotte Granfondo. So you've arrived in AlpeDHuez or Bourg d'Oisans. It's the day of the Marmotte. You've done all your training, you're completely prepared, but what's going to get you through the event? Now, the first time I did it, the best advice that was given to me was 3 things. The first one was don't go too hard on the Glandon. The second one was don't go too hard on the Glandon. And the third one was, you've guessed it, don't go too hard on the Glandon. The first time I did it, guess what I did? Went too hard on the Glandon. The second time I rode it with a power meter. I still went too hard on the Glandon. The third time I did it, I used the numbers on my power meter and I was an hour quicker than my first attempt, which was only a few years earlier. Even before the flag drops, I think the key thing is to make sure you give yourself plenty of time to get to the start line, particularly if you're staying at the top of AlpeDHuez rather than down in Bourg d'Oisans. If you're staying at the summit, there'll be hundreds and hundreds of riders descending the road down to the start in Bourg d'Oisans, and every year I've seen people destroying their carbon rims by delaminating them, overheating them on the brakes, so the day is over even before it starts. Once you leave the start line in Bourg d'Oisans, it's a flat run into the first climb, so tuck in, don't get too carried away, follow some wheels. When you get to the very first climb at Alamon, it isn't actually the Glandon, it's literally the road up the reservoir dam. So when you get to the top, you're just on the top of the dam, and then it's another 4 or 5 k's of mainly flat, a little bit roly-poly, till you actually get to the foot of the Glandon. About 4 or 5 kilometres up the Glandon, you come to a small village called La Rivière d'Alamon, and I've done a screenshot here from Google Maps. Just on the right hand side there is a fountain, they call it a bassin in French, completely safe to drink. Your reference point is the post box and the pitched roof shed on your right hand side. I often fill up there because it's still a long way to the summit of the Glandon. Just after you're through the village of La Rivière d'Alamon, there is a descent which drops down quite a way, and at the bottom of it there's a nasty kick right over a tiny bridge, and then it suddenly ramps up. So you've probably been coming down the descent in your big chainring. Suddenly you need to be in your lowest gear, and I've seen many people come to a grinding halt and falling off as soon as they hit this steep ramp, so that's something to watch out for. So the feed station at the top of the Glandon. So the Glandon descent is neutralised, so you can pretty much take as long as you want to get down the Glandon safely. Once you've gone over the timing mat at the top of the Glandon, just take your time. If you want to go to the feed station, great, but I've always missed that out because the queue has been massive. My next opportunity to stop for water is in the tiny village of Saint-Colomban-de-Villars. Apologies for my French pronunciation, but again, this is a screenshot as to where you can fill your water bottles up safely. It's fully drinkable water, and it just allows you to rehydrate on the way down to the bottom of the Glandon. When you get to the bottom of the Glandon, you turn sharp right, and there is a feed station pretty much straight in front of you, and the timing mat to restart the clock is just after the feed station, so it's a good opportunity. There's toilets, energy bars, everything you can imagine, probably even some red wine. The key thing at this feed station is to keep an eye on when people are departing, because you need to be in a group from here. The likelihood is that it's going to be super hot down in the valley, especially on a normal Marmotte in July. It could be 35 degrees in the valley. The likelihood is it's also a headwind all the way to Saint-Jean-de-Maurienne. So you need to be in a group. Previously, I've chased to get on a group, which wasn't the best idea in hindsight. I would actually wait at the feed station to see people getting together, ready to depart, and then encourage them to ride in a group together. A word of warning: when you get to the outskirts of Saint-Jean-de-Maurienne, there is a railway crossing and the train lines don't go perpendicular across the road, they go across at an angle, and it's always one to be wary of, and I have heard of crashes happening there, so just keep an eye out for that. Once you turn right to Saint-Michel-de-Maurienne, there is again a water fountain on the left hand side. It's one of these green cylindrical water fountains that you wind to make the water come out. There's also toilets there just on the left hand side. That's another place that I would definitely stop at if it was a super hot day. The telegraphe is a steady climb. It's only 7-8% most of it. There's a couple of steeper ramps. But if you look up to your right, you can see the mobile phone masts that are at the top of the Col de Telegraphe, and again at the top there's usually water on the left hand side, just close to there's like a mountain refuge come cafe on your left hand side at the top. Then it's a short descent into Valloire, and do be careful of the cobbles in the centre of Valloire. It's probably about maybe 100 metres long. Once you leave Valloire, the road does ramp up really quite steeply, and because the valley's quite wide at that point, it doesn't look that steep. It's just an optical illusion, but it is over 10%. And at the edge of the village, there's usually a feed station on your left hand side, and then you wind up by the Altiport. It levels out a bit, but then it is consistently kind of 9-10% all the way up to Plan-la-Chaux. Now, in previous years when it's been super hot, they have organised an extra water stop at Plan-la-Chaux just on the left hand side. Further on up the climb, when you get to this point, there's the memorial to Marco Pantani. This is the point where he attacked on the Galibier in his last Tour de France. Once you've passed the Pantani memorial, it's likely that on a clear day the summit will be in sight now, and you'll see the snake of riders in front of you winding up the mountain. And in all likelihood, on a normal Marmotte in July, there'll still be some snow remnants by the side of the road. You turn left by the tunnel entrance, the Galibier tunnel, and the road then narrows, and it's also quite vertiginous at this point, so if you don't like heights, you might want to stay in a little bit from the edge. I would strongly suggest that you take a minimum of a gilet with you, or even a super thin rain jacket, regardless of what the weather forecast is. It may be 30 odd degrees down in the valley, but last time I did the Marmotte in 2017, I got to the top of the Galibier and it was 4 degrees. Once you've descended down the Galibier to the Col de Glandon junction, again it's a case of wait for a group or chase for a group. And the likelihood is, again, it's going to be a headwind in this valley. It's usually closed roads, but you'll have to check that one, don't take my word for it. The other key note of caution on this descent are the tunnels. Now, the lighting has improved in recent years, but as you approach the village of Le Grave, the tunnels are pretty dark, to say the least. So apart from the tunnels, it's a steady, fast descent. It's not a technical descent. There's a few short ramps all the way back down to Bourg-d'Oisans. The last official feed station is on your right hand side as you come up to Bourg-d'Oisans, just before the final short run in to the foot of the Alpe. If it's just water you need, I wouldn't worry too much about stopping at the feed station, as there's a lot of water stops on the actual climb. One word of caution is that the water stops on the climb, the taps are at mains pressure. AlpeDHuez in the afternoon can be a furnace, it can be well into the 30s, so do make sure you keep on top of your liquids, and once you're over the finishing line, make sure you eat something pretty much straight away. One thing I would say is do keep an eye on your bike at the finish. We've seen it in previous years where there are opportunist thieves about. So that's our top tips for the Marmotte. It goes without saying that we wish you good luck if you're doing the event this year. I hope this video has been useful, and if there's any questions that we haven't answered, please drop them in the comments below. While you're on the channel, please have a look at our other videos, especially our series on must-do climbs in the Mont Blanc region. And I hope that you will give us a thumbs up and also click the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.